celebrating 15 years of Young Turks.
Welcome back to Young Turks. We are in conversation with Ananth Narayanan, the CEO of Myntra Jabong. And in this segment, we are going to put you on the spot with some difficult questions.
Sure.
Okay. So let's first start with some of the management changes that we've seen at Myntra.
Sure.
And also at Flipkart in the recent past. How, so the headlines make it seem like, something, it's almost like revolving doors, musical chairs, that it's just not the right thing that's happening. As someone who's inside the company, running the company, what do you make of the management changes at Myntra?
So look, I'm hugely excited by the changes that we've actually done. I think it sets us up well for the future. I think just to get the facts, which seldom make the headlines, we've had two people who've been promoted internally on our management team now. Naresh, who heads revenue, Ajit, who actually heads technology. Both were actually Myntra long-timers, both have been promoted. So I'm very excited about it. I actually think we have two women on the management team. Gunjan, who's now heading Jabong, and Ananya, who actually was very much a part of the strategy and planning team involved in the acquisition and now in charge of all of the planning at Myntra, including all the risks that we take, right, in terms of what we buy and what we don't buy.
And also it's a team that's grown organically, largely from within the organization, which is different from what we saw happen, at least at Flipkart over the last couple of years. There were lots of external hires at very senior positions. Most of them have kind of moved on.
I think as organizations scale, you also need to have people who are professional, who come in and actually do it. And I think both are needed, right?
Continuing this conversation, a lot of the analysis, the long blogs that get written, the opinion pieces, all of that sort of, look closely at the valuation markdown that have happened at Flipkart as an entity and tend to correlate that to perhaps an exit that needs to be made. If you are the liberty of talking to us about what the timelines on that are at all, and is there any possibility of a Myntra IPO on the cards?
I think the markdowns in my mind are immaterial. Valuations happen when you raise money, right? So Flipkart's not raised money. So all of these valuations are by investors who have very small percentages. But obviously they're not doing it with no reason, right? So they're looking at something and seeing a very different picture and they're valuing it. But the real valuation will happen when the next round of funding happens.
Correct.
That's number one. Number two, with all the press, the facts are Myntra remains a market leader as far as fashion and lifestyle is concerned. Flipkart remains a market leader as far as e-commerce is concerned. I think overall, the business results have continued to improve. BBD was an outstanding success. Overall burn rates are coming down, growth's coming back. So I feel like it's actually a market leader, which we often forget, right? I think with all the press. So my sense, by the way, is I think Flipkart will do well.
The worry, I think, is that the gap between Amazon and Flipkart is narrowing, and it's narrowing at a pace where very well the next round for Flipkart might be a down round. And people are kind of not looking at it just from a Flipkart point of view, but looking at it from a larger ecosystem point of view. It's the biggest player, startup. I mean, I can barely call Flipkart a startup anymore, but you know what it means generally for everyone who's around.
So look, I think take a view of the market. I think India, by the way, as an e-commerce market is a very nascent stage, right? $100 billion business is not out of the question, right? If you take a 10-15 year view, right? And I think that's why people are still bullish about India. I also don't think India is a market where there will only be one person that survives. It's not a one player takes all market, right? So I think there will be two, maybe three players that actually do very well. I certainly think Flipkart will be among one of them, right? And I actually am very bullish about it, right? Because we have structural moats. We have a big moat in fashion and lifestyle. We have a brand that connects with a lot of India. So I actually feel very good about it. Now, if there's a down road, could there be a down road? Of course there could be. You take any of the major companies, Facebook's had a down road. Any of the unicorns have had a down round. Amazon's had down rounds. And I think it's not the end of the world.
Myntra IPO?
Look, we have to do what's right for the group. We're part of the overall Flipkart group. Whatever creates the most amount of value for the group, that's the right answer. So I think that's how I think the decisions will get made. The real question is there a separate need for capital? Don't think so, right? But eventually if it creates value.
So the stories that Myntra is going to get less from the mothership, are those true?
No.
Some reports quoted 10% cuts on what Myntra is going to get.
No, I don't think so. Look, I think if you think about 10% lower budgets, right, every year on year, for a company that's trying to get to profitability, we should burn less, right? I don't think it's a budget cut. I think it's our fiscal responsibility to spend less as we make the business more profitable.
Okay.
So there are no budget cuts.
Okay.
But we are trying to become profitable, and by being profitable, you will burn less money.
Okay. We were speaking offline. You said that we don't need necessarily the China model in India.
Yeah.
At the same time, we've had people talk about, do we really want some sort of protection for homegrown players, given that they've largely built out the market here and so on and so forth. So tell us why you don't think India is going to be China, and with Amazon already here, Alibaba here for all practical purposes. Where do you see things?
I think the reason India and China are not the same is, by the way, I think one is our overall GDPs are dramatically different. I think if you look at the depth of the tech pool and the depth of the overall middle class, that's actually they're dramatically different. Also, by the way, China was a very manufacturing oriented thing. All the brands existed, right? It was a very branded market. India is a very unbranded market, actually, right? So there are fundamental differences in consumer behavior, spending, technology penetration, and level of brand awareness. So I think they are different. So I think India as a market will evolve differently. I think in India, my sense is there will be 3-4 players that actually emerge from a horizontal standpoint, right? In terms of capital, since you brought it up, my sense, by the way, is, look, I don't have a point of view on capital versus bringing capital.
Whether it's domestic or foreign.
Whether it's domestic or foreign. I do think, by the way, eventually businesses need to be made sustainable. I do think free cash flows eventually are important.
Okay.
Where you get them from is immaterial, but I think businesses need to
Where's Flipkart going to get
generate
its free cash flow from?
Myntra and Jabong could be one answer.
Okay.
I think we could be profitable,
Alright.
and that could be cash flows.
Okay.
Right?
That's an extremely bullish statement to
I
make.
think, look, it can happen, right? We
Okay.
can continue to scale and we can continue to get cash flows. I think several of the categories inside the Flipkart system could also happen.
Since we are talking verticals, I am going to ask you about in fashion. So without taking names, we've seen some of the biggest players in our country, conglomerates, enter the e-commerce market with fashion.
If I look at the fashion business, firstly, I will tell you, I don't think it's about competition, it's about growing the market. You look at India today, the overall business is 1, unbranded, and 2, mostly non-online. So I think the more players there are, the more market we'll create. Today, if you look at Myntra and Jabong, we have 18 million monthly active users. This is not about competition. We have a very large customer base. We have an 80% repeat rate. We have best-in-class NPS, which is the way you measure consumer experience. So I feel very bullish because I think we have customers and we've built a great brand and a great franchise.
It's a big market out there.
Yeah, and I'm very bullish about it.
Okay. So thank you, Ananth.
Thank you.
Very much. Pleasure talking to you.
Thanks so much.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Young Turks. Do write into us. Tell us what you thought of the show. You can also reach out to us on Facebook and Twitter. Till next time, thank you very much for watching.
Celebrating 15 years of Young Turks.